Okay, so section 5.6 is going to teach us how to do a format that is called completing the square. So completing the square really takes an equation that is in standard form, like this, and it converts it into vertex form. Now, we learned about graphing in vertex form and solving equations in vertex form, and so that's really what the benefit is, why we would want to do completing the square, okay, for this class. Now, in other classes, we will be learning how to graph other shapes, which are called conic sections. In secondary 2 honors, we do this second semester. Some Sec 3 courses also teach those topics, and so you need that format, okay? Vertex form, it helps us quickly identify a vertex, match graphs, things like that, okay? So we are not going to be solving in this section. We're simply going to just take an equation that's in standard form and convert it into vertex form by completing the square. That's the process. Now, whether or not the equation is set equal to y, like I have them here, or if our terms are a 0 on this side, the process is going to be the same. You still want all terms to one side, and then you'll follow the steps that I'm going to teach you. So just to keep it simple and avoid you solving, I wanted to make all the equations set equal to y to make that graphical connection and also avoid you just going further and solving the equations, okay? So that's going to be the whole purpose. So the first step, I have 5 steps here, and there's going to be 4 examples. They're all slightly different with the levels of difficulty. So the 2 I'm going to focus on in this class are going to be the easiest level that just gets you used to doing the format, okay? Number 3 is always good to watch to see what's different. And then example 4 is going to be the hardest type. You'll typically encounter these if you do conic sections or in Sec 3, but I'm not necessarily going to quiz you over this kind of a problem, okay? But I do like to show you what's coming and just all the different levels in case you're watching other videos or seeing other resources. I like to be complete, okay? So let's look at my first example to kind of walk us through. And I think it'll take us all 5 to feel more comfortable. So the first step that we want to do is we want to make sure all the terms are in order or on the same side if you didn't have that. And I did pick an example that doesn't have it, just so you can see what I mean. So we do have the y and the x's separated, which is good. If these were all numbers, we would want a 0 on one side. But I don't have them in order. So we're going to keep y the same. We want the x squared term first. We want the x to the first term second. And then we want the constant term third. And that's what I mean by in order, okay? A, B, C. And so this is standard form of a quadratic. Now step number 2 has 2 parts to it. So what we want to do is we want to group the x terms together, and we do that with a parenthesis. So I'm going to add a parenthesis, and I'm going to put the x squared and the 10x together. Leave a space and close your parenthesis. I still need this 22, but I don't want it inside. That's the first part of step 2. Then we want to insert these 2 things. We want to add a blank inside and subtract a blank, because like if I add 5 and subtract 5, I really get 0, so I haven't changed the value of the equation, okay? That's the purpose. So step number 2 is done. Like step number 3 is where we actually complete the square. You'll be doing this in your head or like on the side, but this is what I refer to when I say you need to complete the square or if you made an error. So what we do is we take whatever the x to the first term is and we divide it by 2. So our x to the first term is 10x. So 10 divided by 2, and then we always square it. I want to simplify that before I put it on the blank. So 10 divided by 2 is 5. 5 squared means 5 times 5, which is 25. And so that's what goes on the blanks. I like to use different colors. You don't have to. Okay, that's step number 3. All right. So step number 4 is we want to simplify the last 2 numbers. So positive 22 minus 25 is negative 3. I'm going to keep the y. Now, for the first time I do it, I'm going to show you the factoring. But if you don't like factoring or don't remember factoring or just don't want to do the factoring, you won't ever have to because our step number 5 is the shortcut. But I want to show you why it works. So last quarter when we had this trinomial, we factored it. It was the factors of 25 that would add to give us 10, and we came up with x plus 5 times x plus 5. And because we did completing the square, when we factor whatever this expression is, it will always be the same group twice. And so as a shortcut, we can write that as x plus 5 quantity squared, because we have 2 of them. Now, if you don't like factoring, please stay with me, because you won't really ever have to factor in this format. How to get this is we take whatever that middle term was, we had 10, and we divide it by 2. That's what goes in this parenthesis. 10 divided by 2 is 5, and that's what we see. Okay? So if I wanted to pull out the vertex, it was the opposite and the same. And we could graph this pretty quickly. And that's really the whole benefit, one of the benefits of completing the square with quadratics. We can do it with other shapes, and there's other benefits. All right, so let's do 2 more of those examples, what I would be testing you on. So, example number 1, we have y's and x separated. We have x squared, x to the first, and numbers. So this one, all of our terms are already in order. So step number 1 is done. Now we want to group them together. So we put a parenthesis, I keep my s's together, leave a space, and I keep the same sign. So watch your signs, because that's really where the errors can come in. Then we're going to add a blank in and subtract blank, because we want to balance that equation. Now, let's figure out what goes on the blanks. We take whatever the x term is, so positive 8, we always divide by 2 and we square it. So 8 divided by 2 is 4, 4 squared means 4 times 4, 16. Okay, now I'm going to do step 4 and 5 on the same line. So we're going to combine the term outside. So positive 3 minus 16 is negative 13. And then we're going to quote factor. This is our shortcut factoring. So we put our parentheses squared. We always have x, and whatever goes here is whatever was inside divided by 2. So 8 divided by 2 is positive 4. And that's factored form, vertex form, because that would be x plus 4 times x plus 4. So our vertex would be negative 4, negative 13. Let's do another one. So we got x and y are separated. Great. Let's go ahead and group them together. We're going to keep the terms. Minus 8 stays. And then we can figure out what goes on each blank, plus and minus. So we are going to take our middle term, so negative 14 divided by 2 and square it. So negative 14 divided by 2 is negative 7. Negative 7 squared is positive 49. Okay, that's completing the square. So step 4 and 5 is we're going to do factoring and cleanup. So I'm going to do the factoring. So we know it's something squared with x. It's whatever that middle term was divided by 2. So negative 14 divided by 2 is negative 7. Combine these and we get negative 57. All right, so that would be the level that's going to be 4 problems for practice, can be on your quiz. So let's see what's different about example number 3. So let's put the terms in order. X squared plus 5x plus 9. Now, it might not look any different to you, but what is different is this is an odd number. And so what that's going to imply is that we can have decimals or fractions, okay? So those are always fair game in Sec 2. And I don't have a preference, so I'm going to show you both answers with both formats, okay? So we're going to group them together, the x's, with a parenthesis, leave a space, and then we're going to add a blank and subtract. So none of the steps change, it's just the kind of numbers that will be in the problem. that is different. That makes it a little harder. That's why it's a medium. All right, so let's figure out what goes on the blank. So we're going to take positive 5 divided by 2 and square it. Now, I'm going to do it both ways. So if I keep the fraction, we square the 5 to get 25 and square the 2. 2 times 2 is 4. And so that's what would go on each blank. Now, if you don't like fraction, you can change this to a decimal. So 5 divided by 2 is 2.5. And if we square that, we get, let's do 2.5 times 2.5 is 6.25. So I'm going to write that underneath. Okay, and I really am okay with either one. So now we're going to go ahead and write our answer in factored vertex form. So I would get x plus is whatever the middle number is divided by 2. So 5/2, or you could have written it as 2.5. I'm okay with either one. And then if we combine, I'm going to change 9 into 4. So 36 divided by 4 is 9. So now I can do 36 minus 25 is 11. The denominator stays the same. Or if I do 9 minus 6.25, we get 2.75. Okay, so either version. All right, so if your B is an odd number, you'll have decimals or fractions, and they're okay. Now, the hard example will show up in conic sections or in Sec 3. I don't necessarily have to test you on this or give you any for practice, but I do like to show it to you, especially for the students that want to see as hard as it can get. So what makes this problem the hard level is that we have a coefficient in front of the x squared. None of the other levels will have that because it adds an extra step. So we want to make sure our terms are in order, which they are, so we're still going to group them together. Now, we do have to add a step in that's not listed because this is unusual and not what I would be quizzing you over. But because we have a coefficient of 3, when you complete the square, we don't. So we need to factor that coefficient out. So factor means to divide by that number. So we're going to take out or divide out a 3. So if we divide by 3, we get x squared minus 8x. Now I'm only going to do it to the terms that are in the parentheses. I don't do it to the 12. It's outside. When we go to complete the square, we still use the new b though. So we're going to take negative 8 divided by 2 and square it. So negative 4 squared is still 16. And okay, but wait till we add our second blank. Because I added a 16, I didn't really just add 16. I would have to divide by 3. So to figure out what we started with, we multiply. So 3 times 16 is 48. That's what I really added. So if I really added 48, I need to subtract 48 because I can't change the value of the equation. Okay, so now our final step is we have to leave the 3, and our middle term is going to be negative 8 divided by 2, which is negative 4. 12 minus 48 is negative 36. Okay, so if that hard example is still a little confusing, I totally understand. I just want to expose you to it for now. And if we do conic sections later on in the year or Sec 3, we will definitely be bringing this back and showing you some more examples. Okay.